वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति। You had a question at the end of last class?
You mentioned that the subtle body, under chapter 15, verse 16, the subtle body is perishable and the causal body is imperishable. I'm just wondering that when somebody dies, the causal and the subtle body leaves, and the Atman acts as a medium, if I'm correct. So, why is it that one is perishable and one is imperishable?
Interesting question. Going back to the verse 16, when we said there are two Purushas in this world, one is the perishable and the other is the imperishable. We said the perishable would be the Kshara, which is the gross body, and the perishable is the gross body and the subtle body, and the imperishable is the causal body. To which Amma is asking, at the point of death, it is said that the causal body and the subtle body are transferred. So why are we being specific only to the causal body as the imperishable and the subtle body as perishable? Is that the question? Right. See, when a person dies, the reason of death is the vasanas have finished and the new bundle of vasanas has to take over. Alright? The causal body, which is the vasanas, it is called the causal body because it is responsible, it is the cause for the subtle and the gross body. Okay? So when a person dies, that bundle of vasanas have exhausted. Alright? So the bundle he had was responsible for the subtle body and the gross body. Agree? When he is born with a fresh bundle of vasanas. With me? That will be responsible for a new mind and intellect and a new gross body. Therefore we say the gross and subtle body is perishable. The causal body is imperishable. If you argue against it and say that the subtle body is carried forward, then whatever clarity you have of the intellect, whatever positive feelings you have of the emotions, they must be expressing from day one of birth. It takes 15 years for the intellect to fructify. It takes a good while for the child to feel emotions. It needs to be nurtured. It needs to be instilled, which doesn't come naturally to a child. But vasanas come very naturally. Right from distinct age, the child is either playing a guitar or playing a particular sport or taking to something in particular. Why? without even the influence of the mother. Why? I know of you find certain kids, when you present them electronic toys, they dismantle the toy instead of playing with the toy. What is that? Thiru? You give an electronic toy to them, instead of playing with the gadget, they pick up a screwdriver and start dismantling it. What field Vasanas have got? Some engineering background, whether they go to mechanical, electromechanical, or whichever field they get into, he's got an engineering brain. At the age of 5 and 6, the guy is attempting to do that. You give him a sports car, he's dismantling the sports car. That nobody teaches. That's Vasanas. But the mind and intellect is nurtured. Therefore, we say the subtle body dies. It's perishable. The causal body is imperishable. Relative. A good question and a better answer. Not really. Good question, in fact.
Just a follow-up question on that, clarification on that. So, are we saying is the vasanas that the child has, is it something which is carried over? I mean, the unexhausted vasanas from the previous birth is carried over, or is it a fresh set of vasanas? Because I remember you said something about fresh set of vasanas, so I was a bit confused there.
It's a fresh set plus the unfulfilled vasanas.
Plus whatever is carried forward from the previous birth.
Yes, therefore it's imperishable. It's not necessary that all your vasanas are finished, because it's a complex. There's so many vasanas an individual has. Sometimes you walk into a shop with a desire to buy a particular item, and once you spend a little time in that shop, your mind has changed. You went with one desire which remains unfulfilled, you create another desire, therefore you have to leave the shop. So whatever vasanas you're entertaining cannot be fulfilled here. Just like if you want to watch a movie, it's not possible in Fraser Hills unless somebody downloads movies in the rooms and watch, which is outside the schedule. I am not even looking there. I am maintaining my focus only on Raj, because little deviation I am in trouble. But what to do? My eyes sleep. Something wrong with my eyes. No. Tongue, I some problem. So are you okay? Yes, Balaji.
Guruji, are you saying the causal body is subtler than subtle one?
Correct. Pass the mic. You think about the statement and ask me tomorrow. 5 மணிக்கு கேளுங்க அது. Think about that statement. Mic திருப்பி கொடுங்க சார் அங்க. Mic கொடுங்க ப்ளீஸ். திருப்பி கொடுங்க. பாவம். ஃபர்ஸ்ட் क्वेश्चन கேட்டான். எல்லாம் ரிட்டர்ன் ஃபர்ஸ்ட் क्वेश्चन கேட்டான். ஆன்சர்.
I don't know. I mean,
see, as I'm answering to Amma, in fact, the chronology is the chronology of the chronology of action. So the chronology of action is energy of action. The root of anything is a vasana. So vasana is called the causal body. Causal because it's the cause. It's like the seed. If you want to draw the analogy, vasana is the seed, sapling is a thought, a plant is a desire, a blossom tree, a full grown tree is action. Seed, sapling, plant, tree. Vasana, thought, desire, action. So, to your question, is vasana subtler than the subtle body? Yes. The subtle body is an expression of the vasanas. It's a manifestation of vasanas. Everything, sir, not just subtle body, the entire world is an expression of vasanas. The only thing which is above the vasanas is Atman. Everything else is below it. Whatever you perceive, conceive, which you can't perceive, everything is all below vasanas. I wonder why you had this doubt.
No, but one more question. Where do you place free will?
See, the only thing that is running parallel to your vasanas is free will. Good question. Now, what is free will? See, the only thing that is running parallel in Sanskrit, it's called Purushartha. See, the Purushartha gives us the freedom of choice. Purushartha gives us the freedom of choice, and that freedom of choice expresses through the intellect. Please mark my words carefully. The freedom of choice of Purushartha operating or is functioning through the intellect. The intellect is an equipment. Okay? If there is no free will, intellect also is slave to the vasana. Isn't it? Then you have no choice, no way to challenge the vasana. You can't challenge. If you assume, if you take to the thought that vasana is the cause, subtle body, the mind, intellect is a product of it, so the parent controls the child. There's no way it goes vice versa. The opposite cannot happen. But what gives the ability to the intellect to actually control the vasana? What control? We're talking of self-realization. You can actually eradicate all your vasanas and get to the self. So what gives you that ability? It's that Purushartha, that free will that functions through the faculty called the intellect. Now what you've got to note, the fact that you're a human being, you've got the free will. You are free to choose, you're free to do what you want in life. You want to evolve or devolve, choice is yours. You want to choose to do right things, you want to choose to do wrong things, you have the choice. But yet, why is it you're not able to make the right choices? It's because the faculty, the equipment is weak. The intellect is weak. So what we are trying to do is to develop the equipment so that the freedom you have can express beautifully.
In this case, the free will should be stronger than vasana. I mean, to overcome vasana, right?
It's running parallel. It means you have the choice all the time. But what gives you the strength? In fact, you can overrule the vasana. But But what facilitates you to overrule the vasana is the intellect. So the free will operating through the intellect can challenge the vasana. Otherwise, by the argument and establishment that intellect is grosser than vasana, how can anything gross control subtle? It cannot, isn't it? The law is subtle controls the gross. Then vasana should always control the intellect. Correct, Aliva? But now we are saying you can challenge the vasana, you can change the vasana, you can eradicate the vasana. Are you okay, Shantima? So the reason is Purushartha. Okay? Yes, Tiruputra.
Talking about perishable and imperishable, intellect again, if we had made some efforts in this life to increase the percentage of intellect, will that be perishable or will continue back where we have left in this life?
That what you acquired is the wisdom. The wisdom functions through the intellect. Again, wisdom is not intellect in that direct sense. Wisdom is there which expresses through the intellect. It can also express through refined emotions. Why are you only restricting it to intellect? Let's say a devotional person, a highly evolved person who is devotional by nature, he may have a very poor intellect but highly spiritually evolved because he's got a very pure mind. His bhavana is so strong, he's not analytical like you and me, but he's got a very strong mind. So why are you only measuring with the intellect? I know where you're getting. You're trying to pin me down, corner me. I got that. So you got to take it in a broader perspective. What is it? It's a loose interpretation. You can't strictly say that vasanas also are imperishable, because ultimately vasana is also going to end at some point. When you realize there's no vasanas, how can you say imperishable? So it's only a borrowed interpretation to understand what, because he uses the word another Purusha. Just for that we are just playing with the terms or ideas. But it's a very conscious, it's not loose idea as you might think, because there is an answer for that.
Often we always relate mind and intellect at a subtle body level. So now we have bringing intellect functioning through the free will. That's causing a little bit of realignment to how we have grouped those.
But it is always been maintained. In fact, we always maintain that this ability to choose functions through the intellect. Otherwise, you don't have the freedom of choice, because intellect is a slave of the vasana. So you have to incorporate that idea into the understanding. That is an established fact. Okay? Yes, Dr. Ravi.
So, the subtle body, which comprises of thought and desires, mind and intellect, when the body perishes, together this also perishes. So they form a bundle of seed of vasanas. What happened to the desires? Is it vasanas means unmanifested desires?
Vasana is unmanifest desire. So vasanas are transported.
So these vasanas get embedded into the rebirth.
They are instrumental for rebirth.
Instrumental for rebirth. That's why we say they choose the parentage. Okay, thanks.
Guruji, here it says that it is one needs to put considerable effort and time to change one's vasana. So it is possible to change vasana.
Is it not? Did we not discuss earlier that you can create a new vasana?
Yes.
So you can create a vasana, you can change the direction of your vasana. When you choose to work for a higher ideal, what are you trying to do? Are you not dropping your lower and picking up the higher vasana? Are you not changing the course of direction of your personality? Where it's heading? So you can change the direction, you can acquire new vasana, you can eradicate your vasanas. You are the master. So you got to believe at all times you can do what you want. You are not someone, a victim of destiny. You are the architect of your personality. You can define what you want. Let not external factors define what you are, who you are. You can determine what you want to be. You can make whatever you want of any situation you are exposed to. That belief you must have, because you have been given that gift. But when that belief is absent, you become a victim of external situations. Here you have the capacity to achieve realization. Can you conceive that? To completely wipe off all that samsara, you can achieve realization. And what are we allowing ourselves to be affected by all the petty issues, man? Where is that and where are we? If you take into account what potential we have, it's like you're like a dynamite. And you're afraid of a small Diwali cracker. Pat. Why are you afraid of this pat? You can have a nuclear bomb. Your whole generation can be wiped out. That kind of capacity. So they give us that fillip. It's all these texts do. They reinstate that belief, the thought. Can any one of you dare believe that yes, I will attempt to realize the self? You're all seeking this knowledge. Can you all dare to believe that I will attempt, as audacious as a thought that if any one of you think that I will want to compete and represent Malaysia in the next Olympics? That is impossible. But realization is very much possible. Because nothing to do with your physical ability. But just to give in comparison, can you dream? Can you think of that? It is possible. Nothing is impossible. If you can convince the committee that age is not a barrier for you to compete, then you can have a roadmap. If not, the coming Olympics, another 8 years from now. It's just easy. Remember the law of attachment. The Kolpa. What's the law of attachment? Can you dare to think? The moment you can think, the moment you can associate a thought, it's a matter of time you get it. You reach it. You become it. As you think, so you become. Are you okay, Leela? 17.
Uttama Purushastvanyah Paramapetyudahrita Yo Lokatrayamavishya
Vibharthavyaya Ishvaraha Uttamah Purushastvanyah Paramatmetyudahyutaha Yo Lokatrayamavishya Vibharthavyaya Ishvaraha. But the highest Purusha being is another, yet another, called the Supreme Self, the indestructible Lord who pervades and sustains the three worlds. I don't know how much of mental capacity you've got. After going back to the room, I was just wondering, I was just putting the number of hours I've kept at the desk studying or talking or lecturing. It's close to 9 hours. It is 9 hours is like jogging a marathon when you're not ready for it. Even when you're ready for it, marathon will drain you out. 42 kilometers running. Like that, 9 hours of constant study. Because talking is also a very conscious application. So please, I can see tired faces. That's why I'm very worried to get into the verse. Correct? No, I will, even if you don't, I'll proceed. But I'm just alerting you, that's all. Avas. That's all. So he introduces the concept of Supreme Being here. Okay? This verse in particular has confused a lot of profound thinkers. Just to name one such thinker, the great Aurobindo, when he interpreted this verse, he started talking about a super Atman. Because in the previous verse it talks about the indestructible, which he took as Atman. Since here he talks about yet another, he had to define or give it a concept what it is. So he calls it as the super Atman, which is different from the Atman established in the previous verse. So you have a lot of opinions floating out there by reputed thinkers. So I don't know what chance we have in understanding, but let's have faith. We should not come to wrong conclusions. Okay? Now, the word Anya is another from the other two, Shantima? Kshara and Akshara. So Kshara is perishable, Akshara is imperishable, and Anya is the Purusha, Uttama Purusha, Supreme Being. Now, you have two interpretations here to understand this concept. Jot down the first interpretation. The first interpretation is Kshara is the body, mind, intellect, which is the perishable, which is the gross body and the subtle body. As we interpreted earlier, the gross body, subtle body, which is the body, mind, intellect, is the perishable. Alright? And then the Akshara, the imperishable, is the Vasanas, which is the causal body. And then the Uttama Purusha is the Atman. Straightforward, very easy. But if you were to stick to this interpretation, it's a very ordinary interpretation. You don't do justice to what the verse is saying. The fact that they use the concept of Trinity, they want you to just attempt to understand the grandeur and magnanimity or the magnitude of what the God is. To understand the concept, they introduce the concept of Uttama Purusha. Pavitra, are you okay? Perishable is the body, mind, intellect. Body is the gross body, mind and intellect, subtle body. Imperishable is the causal body, which is the Vasanas. What is the Uttama Purusha? Is the Atman. Atman is God. Okay? This is the first interpretation. Now the second interpretation is, you will have to take Kshara. The perishable will be the body, the mind, the intellect, and the Vasanas. All of them are perishable. Okay? Then comes the trick. What is the imperishable? Atman, which enlivens matter. Don't confuse it. Atman, which enlivens matter. When you say it is a substratum, like the rope is a substratum of the snake, don't say illusion. Don't confuse it. Rope is a substratum of the snake. The entire perishable world. Now, how far can your imagination of the perishable world can go? If I ask you, what is the boundary you draw for the perishable world, doctor? If you are explaining the world, the parameters of the world to a science student, what would you say? Would you draw the boundary to the a planetary system, the 8 planets or 9 planets and the sun? Or would you say, no, this is just a speck, is just a dust in the huge cosmos which we have discovered, the Milky Way and whatnot? So wouldn't you go deeper into the unexplored realms of that space, outer space, and say that all is Ushama, all that is perishable? What you have discovered today and what you might discover 100 years later, all that will fall under perishable category. So that magnitude of the world itself expands. The thought of the world itself expands that far. Okay. Now, what would be the imperishable then? What is Akshara? You immediately said Atman. Now, Atman, which supports the perishable. See, wherever there is a perishable, there has to be imperishable, substratum, no? Like wherever there is a manifest, there has to be unmanifest truth. Like in the Shivalinga, when you see the Shivalinga, only you see a half ellipsoid. If you take a banana and you chop the banana, I am holding the banana in my palm, but what you had seen is only the seen portion, which I have chopped it, but the unseen portion is hidden behind my palm. You get me? So the manifested world is supported by the unmanifested reality, which is the linga, which is not seen, which is the imperishable, which supports the perishable. Are you all with me? I'm repeating again. The second interpretation is we say the body, mind, intellect, the gross, subtle, and the causal body, the vasanas, are all perishable. Atman is that which supports that perishable matter. All the things and beings which are perishable is supported by that perishable matter. So if Atman is the imperishable, then what is the Uttama Purusha? Now, you all can see clearly? There is this larger circle, which in fact has no boundary. Slide number 53. You read that, you'll have an idea what I'm saying. God is a circle whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere. Said by a Greek philosopher. God is a circle whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere. So you can't draw a circumference, but I had to draw to capture a concept. So don't limit your idea to the circle I've drawn. I have to establish that before I get into this. Okay? Now imagine this boundary without a boundary. It's everywhere. That is Uttama Purusha. But before you get to that, this, I have to enlarge it. But actually this circle which you see is actually a dot. This dot is the world, the manifested world, which you have described as, which is that mighty cosmos. What did I say, Kara? What is the world you said? Oh, it's huge, sir. In fact, you know, when you go to this planetarium, mind-boggling, fascinating experience. Robert in Vaishnav for many years, I have visited the planetarium. So, I was more amazed than her. You know, the thing actually zooms in what you are and then starts zooming out. It goes outer hemisphere, further and further away from who you are, where you are, what you end up as just an insignificant spot. First they show the city, and then the nation, and then the country, and then the planet Earth, and the planetary system, and then the Milky Way, and then it goes somewhere, and then the whole the dome, you know, is so vast. And where is that planetary system talking about? Can't even see that. So many millions of suns and millions of galaxies and millions of Milky Ways, all put together is dot. First, we fathom that. Order. So that you can see I have made a bigger circle. Now, what is this dot, Balaji? Just know your answer. Perishable. Now, what we said, there is an imperishable element that supports the perishable. So, if we consider this circle as perishable, then there is that section which is highlighted within the circle, that is the Atman, which is imperishable. Correct? Okay. So far so good. But when you do this, if you go by the first interpretation, by any interpretation, if you limit Atman to the perishable sphere, then you are limiting God only to this dot. Aren't you? You are confining that God to this dot and nothing beyond it. And to correct you and say, man, you can't understand God. It is beyond your capacity to fathom. It is everywhere. Just to highlight that idea, to say it is beyond it. It is everywhere. They introduce the concept of Uttama Purusha. Otherwise, they don't need to. But the problem is you limit the concept of the imperishable only to the perishable world. You don't say it is just there. No, it's just not there. It is everywhere, and it's beyond what you can conceive and beyond what you can imagine. That is God. Outstanding. In fact, it is not an intellectual concept. You cannot conceive God.
In this instance, then you say Atman is not God here in this particular explanation.
Atman is God, but limiting Atman to where you are understanding is not God. That is not the concept of God. Concept of God is way beyond it. It's like, sir, you're trying to gauge how wealthy is that person. And you come to an understanding and you go and tell him, sir, are you worth this much? He says, I'm far, far, far more than what you can conceive. You, with all your knowledge and knowing him, you have come to say, this is what your worth is. But he says, no, sir, I'm sorry. I'm way, way beyond it. You can't even fathom what's the kind of wealth I have. You never knew that he's one of the top billionaires in the world. You thought he's one of the richest persons. Yeah, he's one of the top billionaires in the world. So even beyond a point, in fact, it's like saying you go to Dubai, and from the ground floor, you're trying to see the 120th floor, the Burj Khalifa. Your eyes can take you to a certain point. Beyond that, you can't visualize, you can't see anything. Can you? Similarly, they are trying to tell you the best of intellects cannot capture God because it is not a concept. You got to give up your ego that I know what God is. And the Upanishads bring it out very well. If you think you know, you do not know. Not that I do not know, I know. These are the words of the masters. Not that I do not know. I do not know because it's not an intellectual concept. I know because it's an experience. I have experienced it. But I do not know it in the way you understand it. Like I understand the concept of God, but I don't know God. In my dream, I'll explain this to you. But I have not realized God. I am not a realized soul. That's the difference. You see?
Please, can we say that?
Hold it far.
Can we say that Akshara is the conditioned consciousness?
Please forget that concept. Conditioned consciousness is your body, mind, intellect, which is again a switch it off. Conditioned consciousness is, remember the prism we spoke this morning? That individual which is born out of the prism is the conditioned consciousness. That's all. Which is Shanti is conditioned consciousness. Where is Shanti compared to the entire perishable world? What is your proportion compared to the macrocosmic world? You are a micro. What is the proportion of a micro to the macro? Enna balan? As mathematics la proportion illa. Point not. I'll not allow you to talk. Yeah, please.
But then that which animates this body, mind, intellect is the spirit within us, which is the Atman within us as well.
Okay, it is the Atman. What is your idea of Atman? The same Atman is enliving its body, mind, intellect. Correct?
Yeah.
I ask you, can you please explain what the Atman is?
That which is all pervasive.
What is all pervasive?
That which
Pervading the whole world?
is pervading other than the world.
What is other than the world?
It should be not the next.
That's all I've been saying so far.
So that's Uttama-Purusha.
Correct.
So that which animates us is now conditioned and all through the manifestations.
See, the walls of your personality cannot condition the grandeur of Atman. Like the walls of this hall, can it condition space? Yet we call this is hall space. That is balcony space. That is bathroom space. The walls cannot condition space because walls are gross. Space is subtle. If the walls cannot condition space, see, can you kill a vasana? Can you contact a vasana? Vasana itself we do not know until it comes as a thought. You can't even conceive a vasana. What are you talking about Atman? You see, Atman is so subtle, it cannot be conditioned. But when Atman functions through matter, it becomes conditioned. Again, terminology only. Therefore, we say Shanti is a conditioned consciousness. But Atman remains unconditioned in that combination.
So within us now there is two aspects, the perishable and also the imperishable.
There is only one God.
Now the matter and that which animates the matter.
Which is imperishable.
So isn't that Akshara?
Yes. See, The Akshara, see, what you must try to understand is only a concept. And the objective of the concept is trying to tell us how vast God is. Exactly going by the quotation here. You can't actually draw the parameters where God permeates and where it doesn't permeate. See, you and I, the best of intellects, can draw a boundary to the world. Can we imagine anything beyond the world? Can anyone imagine beyond the world? He is saying Brahman is there also. That's why I said it's not easy to understand. But what you must understand is there is only one God. It is being described to only give us a concept of what that God is. See, our concept of God is what? In idols, in temples, in place of worship. Do you worship a stone that is lying on the roadside? Do you see God in it? That itself is too far-fetched. It is impossible to follow. If you say the entire perishable world is God, everything is God. This table is God. This pillar is God. That's what I'm sure you've seen that movie Bhakta Prahalada. No? That guy. Recently it came a few days before I left. So fascinated to watch that movie. Lord Narasimha. I was watching with Vaishnavi and she tortured me. What is this? What is that? Why is he like this? Why not like that? Why did he come from the pillar? Where is he there? Is he there in this pillar? I hear you. I hope I didn't watch the movie. Of course, for Shippu girl, she didn't understand what's going on. You know, God is everywhere, man.
How do you bring the concept of soul again? You know, soul is in this concept. And number two, you know, initially you started out saying this God is within you. Remember that you had that old sayings from all the different religions, God is within you. So now we are saying God is within you, and then you have this concept of Uttama Purushan, which is all pervading everywhere, beyond the world, beyond the universe. So how do you sort of bring these two things together?
See, the soul, it's just a term. You can call it Purusha, you can call it consciousness, you can call it the soul, you can call it Brahman, you can call it Atman, you can call it the Akshara, you can call it Uttama Purusha, you can call it the supreme reality, you can call it the pure consciousness. It is just a term. As far as you can call it Kshetrajna also, correct? I missed that. Thank you. So whatever you call it, it is just a name to get our clarity. That's about all. To understand what it is. It doesn't mean the God changes. There's only one entity. Answer to the first question. The second question you asked is?
Concept is God is within you.
Okay, I got it. So why do we say, when we are trying to say that the pervasive nature of God, why do we say that God is within and the realization is within? Okay, why is it? Is because spiritual path is an introverted path. It's not an extrovert path. You don't go outward, even though it's there, you don't go outward, you go inward. So the realization happens here, the experience happens there. You realize it within, and the quality control is outside there. Did we not mention the statement, when you spiritually progress, you start seeing the oneness in everyone? Ultimately, you see the Atman everywhere. So the quality control is you see less differences and more oneness. But to get that, you must get to the headquarters. It's located here. Like example we take is the government of a country, the government of Malaysia is in the deepest woods of these hills, the government of Malaysia rules. Isn't it? But you go to meet any government department there, nothing exists. Oh, you say government exists, so you want to have an appointment with the health minister. Legitimate meeting arranged. You can't go and have a meeting with him in the woods there. Or you can't go into the waters of the country, the territorial waters, and say, where is the government? You can't ask them. You want to contact the government, you go to Putrajaya, that's headquarters. Even though it is there, its wings are spread all over. Similarly, the Atman is here, but it expresses everywhere, it manifests everywhere. So you reach it here, you realize it here, and experience it everywhere. But if you don't realize it here, you can't experience it elsewhere. So it's inward out, not outward in.
Looking at the concept of perishable means there is an end. That means there will be also a beginning. That means it can be created. If imperishable, will that mean that there is no end and there is no beginning? That means the imperishable coexist with the Uttamapurusha as no beginning and end.
Correct. There is no beginning and end to Uttamapurusha.
As well as the imperishable.
Same thing. Only extension. Idea is same. God never began for it to die. It is not born to die. It's beyond time, they say. Time is born with the second experience. Brahman existed in the first experience. Because time is an interval between two experiences. Brahman existed in the first experience. So there is no birth and death to Brahman. See, what we must realize is, after all this, you will shamefully, happily, gracefully say, I can't understand God, and give it up. After all the struggle we have put in, you must confess that you can't understand God. But then why did you put us through all this, sir? Because to realize, to knock off your arrogance. Just to knock off your arrogance. Give a knock on your head. Knock on my head. You think you know? That's what you people go and do in a temple, no? You can't, man. It's too grand for you to capture it. So what are you trying to capture? Huh? But the exercise is important, because end of the day, you have developed that clarity, you have developed that intellect, so that it takes you closer to God. Ultimately, it is a dissolution of intellect that takes you to God. See, intellect can't capture God, but when the intellect extends, you reach God. That's the irony of it. All this tamasha with the intellect can't take you to God. The day the intellect drops, that's when you reach God. But intellect takes you to that verge, and you got to drop the intellect at that point, exactly like a pole vaulter does. He uses that pole to heave himself up to that point, but he cannot afford to take the pole with him. He has to drop the pole. Andamadri, this intellect, all this knowledge, this jnanam, this wisdom is only to that verge, to that final point. At that point, drop it when cross. Don't drop now, huh? Hold on to it dearly to your life until you get there, which is a long, long way. So hold on to it. I'll be very happy if all of you develop an attachment to this knowledge. Because the moment you get attached to the higher, relatively there is a detachment to every other thing in the world that fascinates you. It fascinates me. When I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself.
Guruji, before we started this verse, you mentioned imperishable are the body, mind, intellect. Perishable, and imperishable is the vasanas, the atma. But after starting this verse, I heard it as even vasanas are perishable. So I'm not very clear on that.
No, it's just two different interpretations we give. One was an ordinary interpretation, another is a deeper interpretation. So in the first interpretation we said the perishable is the body, mind, intellect, imperishable is the vasanas, and Uttama Purusha is Atman. First interpretation. That is fairly easy to follow. But then when we come to the deeper aspect, we have included the gross body, subtle body and causal body as perishable. And the Atman which enlivens, or that aspect of Atman which enlivens the perishable is Akshara, imperishable. I know you're lost. I repeat for one last time. After that, I'll get agitated. I will lose my patience after that. 1 hour I spoke all this. Only one verse were covered. Era Shailesh, Yalara name cheppedi. Mali cheppedi eda talnoppi.
Tonight, no movie, sir. Satsa. No movie.
The perishable is the gross, subtle, causal body. Second interpretation. The gross, subtle, causal is the perishable. As we learned the concept, every perishable matter is supported by the imperishable. So that portion of the that portion which supports the perishable is Akshara. Because there has to be imperishable wherever there is a perishable, isn't it? Like two sides of a coin. Are you with me? If you are not, then I don't want to push you because I know there is a strain. Okay? So when you take the imperishable which supports the perishable area, that's limited to the perishable aspect. But then you're limiting God. You can't draw a boundary to God. Just to drive home that point, they say Brahman is even beyond that, and they call it a supreme being. That's all. If you can capture that and think about it, you should get an idea, a fair idea. Because over the last 1 hour I've just been repeating it, explaining the same thing. I've not contradicted myself anyway, just the same idea, just been repeated and reiterated. So if you captured that idea, you shouldn't get confused. Correct the Balan? Okay? The indestructible Lord who pervades and sustains the three worlds. The three worlds are the waking, dream and deep sleep, etc. Means everything is supported by that Lord. Next verse. I want to move on. I don't think they are allowing me. Manian.
I just wanted to ask a question before this, but we went so fast with the new words, Chara.
So fast.
Just want to put my hand.
So much patience, 1 hour I spoke. No, never mind. So
as you said earlier to this verse, that when the child chooses the parents for the next. Okay, if the child, they say, is a meat eater and is a tamasi, and he wants to take rebirth in a yogi family, how about this?
Which chapter does it come from? Do you remember? You choose Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashto Vajayate Athava Yoginam Eva. There's a verse, 2 verses. He says, your future birth is purely defined by 2 factors. One is the vasana, second is the result of your past actions, which is called as karma. Your future is defined by the vasanas and the result or fruit of past action, which is karma. If you are a spiritually evolved person, you will get an appropriate embodiment which is conducive to facilitate your further growth. But if you have committed sins, you have led a selfish, egoistic, self-centered life, you have created enormous karma, and you will have to face the consequences. You will have to exhaust those sins, consequences of those sins. So you will be born into an environment where you will be put through stress and struggle and strain and worry. All that comes through your way. So the birth you go into is purely determined by the vasana and the karma. Now you are asking, if a person is non-vegetarian, then
he is a non-vegetarian and he do a lot of sins and is a tamasic person. He wants to go into a yogi's family and take a rebirth.
disqualified.
But you see, the child will choose the parents, not the parents will choose the child.
No, child chooses means whose child? Vasana chooses. Vasana chooses the environment. See, child choosing the parentage is only a poetic way of saying. It's the vasana that chooses the environment. So which vasana, which karma, I've already said, if you have done negative karma and you have got animalistic vasanas, you will be born into that appropriate environment to face the consequences. You see, you have to do enormous punya, enormous sacrifice, enormous unselfish work to be born into an environment where your material and spiritual needs are taken care of. I have known students from the ashram, from my colleagues, who struggle to meet their financial material needs. But they're sincere, but their karma is such that they are not able to. What to do? There's nothing to do with that. At the same time, I remember my dad telling me when I came back from the ashram and I decided to choose this as a full-time, commit myself to serve this knowledge rest of my life. I don't know, when I said that, I meant very childishly, innocently I said that. Having spent X number of years, I know what that commitment is. And I've got a long road ahead to I've committed myself to this knowledge, and I have no qualms about it. And when he when he realized the decision I had taken, he said, I am working doubly hard. He is a electromechanical engineer in an aeronautical company, national company. And then he used to come back from work and he used to do a workshop, a private workshop, his own workshop, engineering workshop. And then he had gone through many challenges and hardships. And that word again, intellect stored it. I can tap it. Rest of my life will be there. It will be ringing in my head. He used to say, I'm working doubly hard so that you don't have to work anytime in your life, so that you will always have a shelter, you can always feed yourself, you will always have something so that you can concentrate on the sadhana, you can concentrate on your work. Which dad will say that? I'm fortunate. I'm thankful. It's not that I'm pampered with comforts and luxuries. I have a home, I don't have to worry to feed myself. I went back from here into a country, back to India after 15 years. You know what I have contributed to you all, to this country, to what I have done to Vedanta here. There was no Vedanta before I came here. No institution. Nobody knew anything about it. So I am happy that I have contributed. I go back, I started from zero. Do you know that? It's like bulldozing the whole institution. When I go back, I at least have a home to stay. I have a roof over my head. I can feed myself and my family. So it is that thought and act of his has protected me. If he did not do that, I wouldn't have a home to stay, because my home was snatched away from here. And I don't repent that. He'll take care. You see that I'm not triggering your sentiments or being emotional here. I'm trying to explain to you what karma you do, you will be provided with. So some purva karma I have done, I don't know what I have done. At a young age I have got to this knowledge. And my father introduced, he took me to the lectures, he said, please join and learn and study, I will support you, I will provide for you the rest of your life. So materially and spiritually your needs are taken care of. As I told you, I would dread the thought of having to work to meet my material needs. I couldn't conceive that. When I didn't get established in this. Now I will beg and I'll survive. I don't have to work. I don't mind taking a bhiksha bowl to meet myself and my family's needs. A job is, I have no value for a job. What job will give me? Here in this country, I've had very, very interesting experiences. There was some concern of taking care of my welfare. Because all people like you who took my welfare, I'm putting the clock 6-7 years back. I think Ushama would know. Well-minded people, well-intended people. There came a time, the group of people, I don't want to take names, they're well-known in society, very well capable, materially sound. They called and said, Vinay, what your needs are? How much you want per month? 5,000? 10,000? 15,000? And they stopped at 20,000. If they went higher, perhaps I would have fallen in. Not really. This was their tone. They want to buy me off. And then they want me to be like a pujari. They said, we will give you this, then thereafter you listen what we tell you. But thank you, sir. I don't function that way. We don't function that way. Because I was still under the institution. I said, we don't function. I reported this to Swamiji. I mean, these people call me and say, because they know I'm dependent for my survival and the family needs here, and the way they want to approach it is they want to give me a lump sum a month and they say, you take this and shut up and do what we tell you to do. I said, sorry, I don't mind managing my needs with whatever resources I have, but I will not be dictated by anyone. If at all I get instruction, I'll only get from Swamiji. No one else will instruct me because he is my guru. He is telling me to serve, not anyone else. Politely, and it was a very soft meeting, and I said, I don't think, sir, it works this way. No, we don't function this way. I don't put a limit to what you have to give. I don't tell you what to give, nor put a taboo. Why should I punctuate your gratitude? If you feel grateful, if you want to contribute, that's up to you. I have had students who are ungrateful to me. What am I going to do? I still serve them. So, it is not monetary. So, if you ask me, if you have done certain sins and you expect a heavenly future birth, it can't happen, sir. You have to earn it. Slog it out. You see? So, it's a cause and effect. Everything is a cause and effect. And it's perfectly calculated, no miscalculation. Never happens that your karma comes to me and my karma somebody else gets. Doesn't happen. So when you leave with your vasanas and karma. So if you take that equation into account and answer your question, it will not happen. It can't happen. Okay. I just went broadsword, you understand, because I'm experiencing that, I told you this piece of gadget. It may not be anything valuable, it may have nothing to you all. But a sankalpa, it's there. I have that feeling. And I remember many years ago, Swamiji used to tell this. I never understood him. Easily 10 years ago. He kept, whenever I get a chance, I told you, Shailesh, whenever he saw me or there was a chance of talking, he used to tell, you'll have an ashram one day, man, of your own. He said, you'll have an ashram. I don't know what are they talking about? I don't understand. And Simha, our colleagues, before I left, few months, good 1 year before I left, he walked into the center one day. I was at the desk. He said, sir, can I have a few minutes? I said, yes sir, no problem, please. He had returned from the ashram just a few months earlier. He said, Guruji, do you want to have an ashram? You want to build an ashram here? He said. I said, what? There is, what is this? This is a center, ashram like thing, No, ashram, this is not ashram. I mean a proper ashram. On his own. He was getting some work where he could get substantial piece of land. So I'll get it for you. You start the thing. Now whether it's the right idea, wrong idea, whether it could fructify or not is immaterial at that point. But the fact that somebody walks to you and offers this to you, I want to work for a job to make a living, question doesn't arise. So if you are able to elevate your thoughts, as I said, you must dare to think. As you think, so you become. Why can't we think that way? Why can't we force ourselves to believe I'm that? It's just a matter of belief. I don't need that materiality. Can you tell yourself? I don't need that job. I am not dependent on these people. I don't need anything external. Just that even if you're not there, you get enormous strength from that. Enormous strength. It's very, very powerful. So a little experience of mine, it gives me great conviction to pursue further. That's about it. If it enthuses you, please carry on. Take it. If it's a matter of information, leave it. But these were turning points. These were stepping stones for me. All these challenges. And I have been tested and tested and tested. And one of the biggest challenges I had recently. And I have used it as a stepping stone. I've used it as a stepping stone. It's a huge stepping stone, but I stepped over it. Are you okay? What was? What's time?